everyone, and welcome to Food for Life this week. As always, I'm your host, Ashley Tresleen. And for those of you that haven't been watching us on the regular basis or maybe just found our show, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and a little bit about our guest that's going to be on in a few minutes. Now, I'm a personal chef and food educator by trade. That's what I do. That's what my business is. I help people be healthy from the inside out. That's how I always put it. If you're not healthy from the inside out, then something's wrong, right? You can look the best on the outside, but there might be things going on the inside. But I also like to talk about things that are local and fun and that go well with health and wellness. I love teaching kids cooking classes and all kinds of fun things. So if you stay until the end, usually we do a nice little recipe after our guest has left. I'm so excited for you if you're just joining us this week, or if you're a friend of the show and watching all the time. We have a friend joining us this week that's actually already been on the show. Her name is Claire Morenson. Claire Moren. I got her name wrong. Forgive me. She'll forgive me. She's very nice like that. And she is from CISA, and she's going to join us after these messages, and we are going to talk some more. And welcome, Claire. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Name.
No problem. I'm very used to that.
Oh, really? Does it happen a lot?
Oh, yeah. It's not intuitive at all, so no problem.
Oh, okay. I feel a little better, actually, that I made that a little not so bad. So how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Enjoying this nice fall weather that we're having here, warm fall. How are you doing?
Great. I was able to get outside for a little while. It's actually a beautiful day here in the Northeast, and it's starting to look very much like fall. I don't know about you. It's suddenly I woke up the beginning of this week and all the trees look different colors.
Yes, I love it. I'm ready.
Yes. Now, why don't you remind our audience who you are and what you do for CISA?
Sure. So CISA is Community Involved in Sustaining Agriculture. And we're a nonprofit that works here in the Connecticut River Valley of Western Massachusetts. So we are neighbors. And we work with local farms in our region to provide them with a lot of sort of behind the scenes business support. And we also do a lot of education and outreach to consumers to highlight what local farms have to offer and why supporting them and having a strong local food system is so important. And I'm our communications manager, so my job is really more on the educational side and, highlighting what's in season, how to go enjoy it, and why you should.
Why you should, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a few minutes. Now, CISA has a lot of programs, and I am a member of one of your programs that I absolutely love. I am a local hero member. Now, I tried to explain what a local hero member was before, but every time I do, somehow people are like, I don't get it. You should do it.
I will try. So we have a membership program that's open to local farms in our region in Massachusetts and to other businesses that support local farms. So restaurants, retailers, caterers, institutions like hospitals and schools, the whole kind of gamut of both farms and farm-related businesses or businesses that are sourcing food. So really, it's a way for consumers to, when you see the local hero logo in our region, it's really an indicator that this is a local farm or this is a business that supports local farms. And for members, it's a network. We run a lot of, programs and workshops and opportunities for people to connect to each other. So it's a way of sort of building the network of farm and local food businesses in our region.
Yeah.
Is that exactly what you always say?
Yeah. That works just fine. Way better than I could ever put it into words. Now, I love it because for my clients, I shop at a lot of farm stands or farmers markets, anything in the area I can get my hands on, and to support local business, no less. But I don't know if people really understand why buying local is so important over, say, maybe organic everything. And I try to explain to people that sometimes small farms may be doing organic practices, but they can't afford to go through the process. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, I think that the landscape that local farms are working in, figuratively speaking, is very complex. And so whether or not people decide to go for organic certification is based on a whole range of complicated factors that might have to do with, where their land is located and how much space they have between them and other farms. For really small farms, it might not be possible to be certified organic. Even if they are themselves using organic practices. It's also costly to get certified. So for some people, for some farms, they decide, I know my customers because I sell at the farmer's market and I don't need this particular stamp, but I'm going to be able to communicate to people what my practices are. We also have lots of farms in our region that don't use organic practices that are on a much larger scale or for whatever reason. So if that's something, wherever you're located, the organic seal of approval is, that's a very well-regulated program. So that does give you some information. But if you are near local farms and you're able to connect with them directly, that can be a really great way to find out how they're growing and what their sort of priorities are and why they've made the decisions that they have.
I actually like going to the farmers markets or the farm stands and talking to the owners because whether they're the owners or people that work there, they're always so happy to tell you like what they planted this year, what's going on, what looks good, or no, we couldn't plant it this year because, it was a roller coaster of a spring. We just couldn't get the trees in right or something like that for us.
Yeah.
Or they'll just tell you how they made it or how they grow it. They're so happy to share that knowledge with people and consumers that their eyes light up when somebody asks.
Yeah. Right. They can tell you what's really good this year, too. That's the other exciting thing about it. Like this year, for example, in the Northeast, or at least in our part of Massachusetts, I don't know if this is true throughout the whole Northeast, but we've been in a drought for a lot of the season, which has been really tough on the farms here. But it's been a really great season for, concentrated sugars and peaches and apples and that sort of thing. Like some of those fruits taste extra delicious. So that's the sort of information that you can get when you go talk to the farmer and say, how's the season going? What should I look for? Yeah.
You can also find out if they're not going to plant a crop some year because they know they rotate their crops, or if for some reason they're going to sell out, they were only able to harvest so many apples or peaches from their trees and that was it. And you're only going to be able to get so much.
Right. That's true. Yeah. That insider knowledge can be useful. Yeah.
I also find you can get more for your money and it's always better. Now, anything that's been picked recently is obviously going to be better and more nutrient dense, especially if it's in season. But I feel like people don't understand that, like, when you go to the grocery store or things like that, it's all marked up because somewhere along the way, everyone has to get paid, right?
Right. That's true. It's interesting. Yeah. I think that food prices are pretty complicated in terms of what goes into it. When you go to a farmer's market, for example, the farm has to staff that. They have to have a staff person there the whole time. So there are some efficiencies for them to sell their products wholesale. You just drop off a truck full at the grocery store. So we do have a lot of farms here in our region that sell directly to local grocery stores. They sell directly to local restaurants. And I think that product can move pretty quickly. Those are very regular delivery routes and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that it's definitely possible when there's a bumper year of tomatoes or something like that. You can go get a huge box of seconds for very cheap directly from a local farm, that sort of thing. And yeah, I think that if you have a routine of going to a couple of markets or a couple of farm stands, you can start to learn, where you can find what and who has the best prices for what and who has a lot of what and who doesn't, that sort of thing. And that can be pretty fun, I think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you sit there at the farmer's market going, well, why is he selling tomatoes for $1 less and then the guy over here that I love? So you talk to them.
Yeah.
Do you maybe want to explain what seconds are? Because I'm not sure that's a term everyone knows unless you work in food.
Very good point. Yes. So yeah, seconds are, you often see them with tomatoes or apples, things that are like a little bit harder. You're not going to find them so much with greens, that sort of thing. But they're basically a fruit or vegetable that is perfectly edible, perfectly delicious, but maybe has some imperfection that makes it harder to sell at its regular price. So oftentimes when there is a big crop of something, when they are sorting everything that they've harvested, they'll siphon off the things that have like cosmetic imperfections and sell those at a discount.
And that's like the carrots that grow all weird, or the tomatoes that end up with like, they're like look more like a heart than an actual tomato.
Yeah, exactly. Or two legs intertwined. But that's a good way to reduce food waste. Especially like big grocery store chains have very strict rules for how big products have to be, crops have to be. They have to really be graded and pretty perfect looking in order to sell them. But there is a lot of food that's perfectly edible and perfectly tasty that is just like a little bit off-sized or has some minor thing. So I think looking for that at local farms can be a good way to contribute to reducing food waste.
Well, I mean, let's face it. Sometimes if you try to grow something in your own garden, it doesn't come out. It's not going to be picture perfect all the time.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I've ever grown anything picture perfect, but I've grown lots of delicious things.
My joke is that I literally go to the farmers markets not only because it's an amazing array of stuff, but I kill everything. Like those behind you, I wouldn't be able to keep them alive if I tried. I could follow every instruction in the book and still kill them.
I think benign neglect is the trick with houseplants. That works for me. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm so bad with them. But I can make some really delicious things with the food or the plants. You never know. So
right.
What's going on with farms now? Like, what's their concerns? What's going on? I mean, between the food costs, I know that's like money I have to pass on to my clients. Between food and gas, I absorb as much as I can, but there's only so much.
Right. I think that local farms, and I think farms in general, are experiencing a lot of the same challenges that we're hearing and reading about that all small local businesses, or maybe all businesses in general, are seeing. So certainly supply chain issues are affecting local farms here. People maybe had a plan to do some sort of infrastructure project this summer, but there are huge cost overruns and huge supply chain issues that mean essential pieces aren't arriving, that sort of thing. So input costs have increased for local farms in addition to everybody else. So just trying to buy, gas for their tractors, trying to buy fertilizer or seed, all of those things, the cost has gone up enormously. And then this year, we have had a drought in our region, so that has really affected a lot of crops. Mostly when it's a drought year, the challenge is that they have to spend a lot more labor time irrigating, bringing water to the crops, if they're able to do that, which most farms are set up for at least some irrigation. But it really puts a strain on crews. And farms, in addition to a lot of other businesses, are having a hard time finding staff too. So I think that it kind of all combines to having been a pretty tough year for a lot of the farms that we work with. And last year we had it was a really, really wet growing season. So a lot of farms that we work with kind of went into this season with a little bit of a deficit because last year they lost a lot of crops. Not all of them. It depends on where their fields are and what they grow. But for some people, last year was way too wet. This year's way too dry. And it just feels like, you can't get a break. And it's really hard to set up systems that accommodate all of those circumstances, like so that you're able to bounce back immediately no matter what. That's a really, really tall order for these businesses that have super narrow margins, are very seasonal in terms of their income and their costs, and that are totally weather dependent. So yeah, it's been a tough year. And I don't know if you feel this way or if you've heard this talking to people, but it's sort of, I think for a lot of farmers, it felt like they did this huge lift to make it through the first year and a half of the pandemic, to keep growing food, to keep figuring out how they were going to make that work and keep their staff safe and keep their customers safe. And it's just kind of, there hasn't been a moment to take a breath. Like it just kind of keeps going. Yeah. And, the challenges that are still off, largely related to the pandemic, but all sorts of other world circumstances, they just sort of keep rolling. So I think, it's kind of a burnout. It's exhausting.
It is. And I can see it when I talk to people, or I actually have a farm stand that's near my house. And I go there all the time. And every summer she grows the most amazing jalapenos. And I love them to make like fresh salsas and things like that. And I asked her, I'm like, when are you getting them in? Because I didn't know if the weather affected, their size or when she was going to pick them. And the first thing she said to me is, they are dying in our fields because we do not have enough people to go out and get them.
Wow. Just to do the harvest.
Yeah, they didn't have enough people to share. And the reality is that the reason food service is so understaffed is a lot of college kids don't want these jobs anymore. Apparently they're not as good as they used to be. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like a whole range of factors. It seems, I don't know. I feel like I keep saying like, it's complicated. That's true about so much of the food system work. And yeah, I don't want to be, I don't want to be a total downer about it. Like I've just being around the Valley and being at farmers markets and my own CSA share, there's been a ton of amazing food, and there still is, the harvest. I think depending on where you are, we just had our first frost here. So
almost.
Did you? Almost. Yeah. So we're just at the end of like basil and some of those very summer heat loving crops, but there's still so much food available, like pumpkins and apples and squash. And I mean, I could list things for 10 minutes. It would be boring.
What you actually eat, not the ones you decorate. I mean, they're both available, but let's be clear about that.
Right. And butternut squash and delicata and all those other delicious squashes. So, it's not that, I don't know. I always want to strike a balance between talking about the very real challenges that farmers are facing, but not making it seem like, if you go to a farm stand, it's going to be such a downer, because they really do pull off pretty amazing things every year. And they're able to, harvest and bring in so much food, even with all of these challenges, and, to feed our communities.
Talking to farmers is definitely not a downer. It's so much fun. It's so interesting. And I know about so many things that go into growing that you'll never even think about. And, we're not wanting to be a downer about anything. We just want to, share some of the food system issues that we're all having.
Yeah,
as
definitely.
That runs a food business. And as farmers and other people, the deficits of how much profit we have and how much we can pass on are starting to get smaller, unfortunately. And it's not helping.
I was going to say, for local farms, we in our region I keep talking about farm stands and farmers markets. Because of the way our region is set up, there are a lot of farms that are pretty close to population centers. And so they're able to sell their product directly to consumers. There are also a lot that sell, to grocery stores, restaurants. I mentioned that before. So it's not all one thing, but it is possible here, as opposed to more rural parts of the country, maybe, or much denser parts of the country where the farms have to travel a lot further. It's, our communities are really interspersed with farmland here in Western Mass. So in some ways it seems like, so farmers can just set their own prices and they can make up any losses, but they're still functioning within, they're still functioning within a larger system. They can't just charge $20 for a tomato because their costs have gone up. So it's a tricky balance, I think, for a lot of them to figure out how do I set prices that will work for my customers? Certainly, I think farmers are very aware that too many people in our communities are hungry, not able to access enough food. So how to price food in a way that is competitive, that increases food access for people who need it, but then also meets their needs and covers their costs. So it's a balance for even for people who are selling directly. Yeah.
I mean, everything's a balance and every business is experiencing issues. I mean, think about the weather after the hurricane down in Florida. I'm predicting next year the citrus crops are probably going to be very expensive.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It's true. And, I mean, obviously we hear about, fires in the West and water issues in California. I mean, it's really it's not just Massachusetts with our low scale drought. It's definitely, our whole agricultural system is tied to the weather and we're, sort of at its mercy.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's at its whims these days, and it affects this just getting stuff here too. Like you said, when people are trying to build things, and that's in everything. I mean, I just ordered something that was just, a normal skincare product. One, it went up $5 from the last time I ordered it 3 months ago.
Oh, wow.
It's like crazy. And two, the shipping on it is way longer than it ever has been before.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. People are having to wait. We in Massachusetts had some grants made available to farms to help them build resilience. This was sort of in response to the pandemic, but to help people build infrastructure projects. So storage facilities, and maybe people needed trucks to be able to move their food around. All sorts of different things were eligible. But the idea was, we made it through the first year of the pandemic. Let's fund projects that can make our state more resilient to future challenges, which was an amazing, amazing resource for so many farms here. But, the particular moment has proven to be pretty challenging for people to do that sort of work, because it's hard to buy, everything that you might need, like a greenhouse cover or, just whatever it is that people are doing.
But one, I don't know where you would get one of those. So that's something that we would have to talk about. But two, I also feel like let's talk about some of the fun stuff that's happening though.
Yes.
This time of year in the Northeast, when the leaves are changing and stuff is harvesting from all the farms and all the stands and everywhere, all you see is color everywhere. So what's the season here in the Northeast?
So apples are apples, pears. It's a great, I actually have some hot cider here that I'm drinking while we chat. It is right now is a great time to go out and do pick your own apples or pick your own pumpkins. Usually those are for decoration, the pick your own pumpkins, but there are pie pumpkins and edible pumpkins and all sorts of squashes available too. I feel like this is a great time of year if you have kids in your life to go out to a farm and do something fun outdoors. Soon we're going to start seeing, haunted hay rides, and there are corn mazes open and all sorts of ways that farms are like opening their doors to not just, you don't have to have a kid in your life to do those things. Actually, those are fun for everybody.
Going on a hay ride in a corn maze sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely. So, lots of ways for people of all ages to go enjoy the outdoor fall, the weather, and enjoy the leaves and all of that. So that's something that I really look forward to and really love about living in the Northeast, is that it's such a great time of year to do all that. And then, when it comes to crops and what's in season to eat, I always think it's so interesting the way you can sort of follow your stomach a little bit. Like, this is the time of year where you want, where it gets colder and the days are shorter, and you want slow braised, if you eat meat, like those sort of slow cooked meats, roasted vegetables, like baked apples, that sort of thing. The foods that are taste delicious prepared in those ways are what's in season right now. So all sorts of root vegetables, hearty greens. You can still get a lot of those sort of like the rosemary and thyme type herbs that just suit themselves so well to those sorts of meals.
They love a good squash too, rosemary and thyme.
Yeah, right. And of course, there's always lots of local meat and eggs and honey and maple syrup and all those things that are available all the time, local cheese. So yeah, I feel like it almost feels like you can sit there and think like, what do I want to eat? And that kind of tells you what's in season.
Like what we want to eat, and everyone's going to be sitting there going, I should have made dinner tonight better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nice to do the show. I don't typically cook unless it's the recipe I do at the end. And then I usually just make sure I have some sort of meal prepped in the kitchen. But
Smart.
I've been using a lot of squashes lately, which are pretty much my favorite thing. And the little honey nut squashes are the cutest little things I've ever seen.
I don't think I've had those. I'm going to have to look.
They look like a little squished, like 2-inch butternut squash.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have seen those. Yeah. Oh, they're adorable. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so cute. And if you just like roast them up and put them like on the table, they're the most adorable little thing. I don't know. Right. I get excited when I see cute little things. Instead of using them as a decoration, I think of how can I cook this and make it look
just little individual serving squashes.
Yeah, perfect. Essentially, yes. Which, by the way, everyone, that's a good idea for the holidays, which we will get to in a few weeks. But I want to talk about how the season, we're heading into the colder months. And you talked about storage, some of the farms are looking at, and some other things. And why do farms need as much storage? Because I don't think people realize that farms, other than to store equipment or to store, maybe seedlings before they're ready to plant. What do you store at a farm?
Yeah, so there are a lot of farms around here, especially in the last couple of years, last 10 years or so, I would say. This is something that's expanded a lot throughout the Northeast. It's just, and of course, this is a old tradition. People always used to store crops throughout the winter to stay alive. But yeah, there are a lot of farms here that are growing and harvesting and then storing for the winter. Their onions, garlic, the winter squashes, the root vegetables, and then some greens you actually can grow at the very end of the season. And they don't grow very much throughout the winter, but you can keep harvesting them fresh for sale throughout the winter in an unheated greenhouse. So we're approaching winter farmers market season here. And we're really lucky to, even though we live in a pretty cold part of the country, to have a number of farmers markets and farm stands that stay open because the farms are storing their crops and then making them available throughout the whole winter. And they're both, speaking of the sort of fun elements of the local food system, I think that those are both, it's a great way to get food and to keep, you don't have to store 50 pounds of onions in your basement or whatever. But it's also a nice way to like connect with people and get out and, the sort of fun feeling that you get at a summer farmer's market. It feels very like warm and cozy and lucky to have those offerings throughout the winter as well.
Well, I don't know if I would call it warm sometimes.
Figuratively warm.
So hold that thought, and we're going to talk about some new events and things coming up in a little bit right after these messages from one of our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Liz Teresa. I help women launch and build online businesses they love.
I needed to give my brand a web presence, but I didn't speak tech. Enter Liz Teresa. With lightning speed, she got the essence of my brand. Her guidance notes, her tips were practical and concrete.
She's the #1 person in my life. I'm so happy she came to me.
So thank you, Liz Teresa. I am so excited to keep working with you.
And we are back with the lovely Claire of CISA. Now, we were talking about winter's farmers markets and some lovely winter activities that we can do. And you guys have been putting on a lot of activities that you started maybe early summer-ish, I believe, was when you guys started putting all this together.
Yeah, so this year we have started to host a couple of kid and family focused events called Making Food Fun. That's the name of the series. And they're really about sort of inviting kids and families into an environment that is, is a celebration of local food and really engaging to kids. And the idea there is that kids can be kind of picky eaters, depending. I've heard. But yeah, but oftentimes, inviting them to pick something or to see where it's grown or to help with preparation can really go a long way towards making them a little bit more open to trying new things. So that has been our idea, is that if we can set up events that are focused on sort of that experience for kids and families, then that might be a great way to start sort of bringing kids towards being, more adventuresome eaters and local food enthusiasts as they get older. So we have one more coming up this year, which is going to be at the Forest Park Farmers Market in Springfield on November 5th from 10 to noon. It's the very first day. So the Forest Park Farmers Market runs on Tuesdays during the summer, and then in the winter it switches to Saturday mornings. So it's going to be the very first day of their winter market, and we are going to be there with some apple tasting, so kids can try a bunch of different varieties of apples. Red Fire Farm is going to run that. We're going to have a paint your own pumpkin activity for kids. And there's going to be a food demo, which I think you know more about than I do.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how much they tell you before you get to do this. I am going to be part of the food and making things fun with the kids. We are going to make some lovely, I don't know if I can say what we're making because I don't know if they're going to post that until the day of. But we're going to play with apples and make some snacks for the kids, and they're going to be used with all kinds of ingredients from local farms or farm stands in the area with like honey and maple syrup and nuts. And well, we're trying to avoid the nut thing because of kids. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're going to be using some market vendors as people. So you get to taste the apples, then you get to play with them and make a fun snack.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. So the idea is that kids can get involved, have sort of a hands-on experience, help make something, and then they get to taste it. So we've done other versions of this, and it's been really fun. And we've had kids, from 2 to 10 come and participate, and it's geared towards them, and it's fun. And we're hoping to line up some other sort of seasonal treats as well. So more to come about that.
Ooh,
but yeah, it's sort of a nice way to, possibly. But we're thinking of it as a, we did one of these in August where we had a berry tasting and little popsicles. And so, the idea is that we can sort of engage kids throughout the year and their parents too, or any caretakers, to experience like what's in season now and what's going to be fun to eat and fun to enjoy. So, yeah.
I think even if the kids don't like eating apples, they're going to have more fun playing with them than they are anything else. And it'll be a fun family day. They'll get more people into the markets, and you get to stock your fridge and have some fun at the same time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, that market runs throughout the winter. So hopefully this will be a great way to kick it off. And, if people haven't been before, this is going to be a great opportunity to go check it out. And entrance to Forest Park is going to be free if you come in the Sumner Ave entrance, which is the best way to get to that market. So, yeah, it should be a really fun day.
Usually if you tell them you're going to a farmer's market, they let you in regardless.
Yeah, there's a little shortcut on the Sumner Ave side. So anyway, all this information is going to be on CISA's website, which is buylocalfood.org.
You've been expanding a lot on how you're helping members, how many activities you're doing, but it's only because you guys are starting to ramp up, because I heard you guys have an anniversary next year.
That is very true. Yes. Next year is CISA's 30th anniversary. which is pretty wild. So yeah, we have been, thinking and talking a lot about what it means to reach this sort of milestone year, and thinking about what's changed in the time that CISA has been around as an organization, and what hasn't changed. So yeah, we've been thinking a lot about what it means to be an organization like us that really fills a lot of gaps for local farms and other food businesses. We are responsive to issues that come up for them as they happen. So it's a constantly changing environment in terms of what the support is that people need. But the thing that has not changed is that local farms and food businesses really need a lot of support, and they need, local experts and people to sort of step in and provide them with support as they go. And so, yeah, in some ways it feels like so much has changed, and in other ways it feels like, our services are still needed in order to keep our local farms and food businesses thriving. So yeah, it's been an interesting time of sort of reflection and looking ahead.
Anniversary. Let's see, I don't actually know what you get somebody for a 30th anniversary. I'll have to look that up.
Right. What is that? Is it cotton or something? I don't know.
I think it's one of those weird ones, like when you buy people paper or something weird like that.
Right. Yeah.
But 30 years, that's a long time to be around. It's a long time to be helping people. And it's got to have changed. So many things have had to change. From an organization that mostly just ran small programs to expanding to food businesses, to people like me. And then you guys run workshops for educational purposes. You help, businesses, and you help us find grants. You help us anything we need.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, one thing that's shifted throughout CISA's lifetime is, we started out as a very farmer focused, how do we help local farms keep farming and stay on their land? And that's definitely a huge part of our work still. But I think that we've expanded to having a more kind of holistic sense of our food system. So that includes businesses like yours. And it also includes, anti-hunger programs and other and advocacy work and all sorts of other things that are not just about business viability, but sort of the larger picture of, when we look around, what do we want our food system to look like, and how do we make sure that everybody has a role to play in it and a voice? So yeah, I think that's one thing that's really changed. And I also think that we are just really fortunate here. And I'm sure that this is true in sort of local communities throughout the country, depending on where people live. But here, especially, we do have a really engaged community of people who love local farms and want to see them thrive, and who support them. And that is really what makes their work possible. And that's really what makes our work possible, because, we're not just... the farms are not alone, and neither are we. We have a lot of support from our donors and other supporters that really makes it possible for us to do our work. And so I think, yeah, it feels like the 30th anniversary is kind of a moment for gratitude too, just for the region that we live in, and all the work that the farmers do and all the support that they get from the communities around them.
I do always love, as a local hero member, that when you guys have not only changed a little over the years, but you've also cycled through all of the members every year to provide media opportunities with certain partners you guys have. You feature different businesses every month in the newsletter, and then you put it on your website. So if people are looking, they'll see that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting just how many, once you dig a little bit, there are so many amazing stories in terms of, how farmers and other business owners and workers just see their work and how they see themselves as connected to the communities that they feed. A lot of that is really it's deep, it's meaningful work. And so to us, being able to tell those stories and highlight the people who are doing this work feels like a really effective way to build connection and for people to get to know who's growing food here. And why? What does it mean to them? And who's cooking it? And what does it mean to you, you know? So
I always like to ask, like when I'm doing a big project or I'm cooking for a charity event, anything, I'm always like, all right, if I don't know who grows this, is there someone around here that's willing to either, you know, donate it to charity or come be part of some event, or where can I buy this from someone? Because sometimes you guys know it's grown here, but we don't know who grows it anymore.
Right. That's really true. I think, you know, generally speaking, there's a disconnect unless you make a little effort to sort of overcome it between most of us and our food sources that wouldn't have been there, you know, 2 or 3 generations ago. So, you know, it's not here. We're really lucky to have it be possible to sort of bridge that gap a little bit. And I guess I would also say, you know, even though I work for an organization that supports local farms, I like to say, like, this, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You know, you could go pick some apples, and that can be a really fun way to connect with a local farm and get out and enjoy the season. And you don't have to be like, oh, but, you know, my whatever corn on the cob isn't local. Like, you know, there are so many ways to just sort of to just look for local products in the grocery store if that's where you're doing most of your shopping, or stop by a farm stand and just see what they have there. Because I feel like it's easy to get caught up in a sort of like, oh, but I'm not like a person who only buys local sort of feeling. And, you know, it's doesn't have to be that big a barrier.
Well, I mean, I still have to go to the grocery store for things. Like, there's no way around that. It's almost impossible to live in a colder climate without having to go to the grocery store for anything.
Yeah. And I drink coffee and eat chocolate. So those are not things that are grown here.
I can tell you where to get good coffee. That I can tell you. Since we launched our coffee brand, Bella Foodie coffee brand with Fog Buster. So I can where to find amazing coffee.
Yeah, congratulations. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, go make your apple pie. Get some amazing apples that taste great. And, you know, if you don't know what apples go in a pie, talk to the farmers, because, you know, sometimes
that is the best.
There's a new variety.
Yep. That's the best resource. And that's something that local farmers can tell you, because they have generations of experience making apple pies. So yeah,
not all
experts.
apples go in pie. Just so you guys know, I know pies are like my kryptonite, but I do know that not all apples go into pie. We might want to be thinking about that for the next few weeks, right? Because that's what's going to be happening.
Yeah, yeah. And then soon it'll be Thanksgiving, which is really a, you know, Northeast local food celebration when you think about what the sort of traditional Thanksgiving foods are. So it's a great chance to.
It's crazy to think. I saw some countdown the other day about how many days till Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, and the end of the year. And then you sit there and go, please don't make me think about how many days.
It's all imminent. Oh my goodness. I know. So the first leave changes and then it's New Year's.
So I got a few fun questions for you before I let you go.
Okay. Yeah.
So what do you like? Like, what's your favorite vegetable and what's your favorite fruit this time of year?
Let's see. My favorite vegetable, that's a tough one but I guess I'd say I look forward to Brussels sprouts. Maybe that's an unconventional answer. Every kid's. But that's something, you know, that's a fall crop that I really think is delicious, prepared in lots of different ways, roasted especially. And, you know, you can get the big stalks with the Brussels sprouts still on them at farm stands. So that's like a thumb workout to get those off. And then as far as fruit goes, I just got some pears last week from a local orchard, and I really like those when those are in season. And, you know, they have such a short window and they're like ripe but not mushy. And yeah, that's a very delicious fruit to me.
Okay. Now those are two unconventional ones for this year. This time of year. I never hear people do that. But did you know that it's genetic, whether you like Brussels sprouts or not? You're like born with the different taste buds.
Really?
Yeah, it was a fact I learned. That in my random fact of the month is that I know that there's over 200 varieties of pumpkins.
Oh, wow. Is it like cilantro in that way? Like some people have
like that. Like for me, no matter, I'll eat them if I have to, but no matter what you do to a Brussels sprout, you can't convince me that it tastes good. It just
it tastes good. Yeah. Well, what do you look forward to this time of year? Do you have the honeydew squash or whatever?
Love the cute little squashes. I love all things squash and gourds all together, to decorate with them, to cook with them. They make some amazing soups. And I am an apple lover through and through. I mean, pie, apple crisp, making homemade applesauce. Those are the things that I love.
I love fresh applesauce too.
Yeah,
so good.
So I will see you soon. Hopefully, are you going to be at our event in November or no?
I will be there. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the big reveal of your demo. That sounds fun.
Let's not make it into something that's I'm going to be having kids make a mess basically and play with food. Please don't think it'll be anything super fancy. So with the special events coming up and the things going on, where can people find you again? I have your banners set up, but I want to make sure that everyone sees them.
Yeah, so the best place to find us is buylocalfood.org. We have information about upcoming events and, everything that's going on at CISA right now. We also have an online guide to local food and farms. So if you're looking for like, where can I go pick my own apples, or where is the best place to buy my Thanksgiving turkey, you can find all of that information there. And then I can see our social media handles are cycling through. We also have a newsletter. Yeah. So there are lots of ways to just connect with us in an ongoing way. And we are always posting about, what's in season, farmer stories, what's going on for us and in the food system locally. So lots of ways to connect with us.
Claire, it was so nice to have you on again. And thank you for being a friend of a show and a friend of mine. And I'm happy to see you. And I'm so excited I'll get to see you in person without a screen in a few weeks.
I know. November 5th should be great. And thanks so much for inviting me back. Nice to talk to you too.
Bye. Have a lovely night.
You too.
So wasn't that fun, everyone? We got to learn some more things about farms, all the upcoming events, and spoiler alert, I am taking part in their Make Food Fun project on November 5th at the Forest Park Farmers Market. So if you're in our area, please come down, come join us. It'll be a fun activity for the kids, and it'll be a great way to kick off the winter markets. Now, after these messages, I will be in the kitchen, and hopefully no technical difficulties this week. I'm crossing my fingers, so shh. Let's find out. Let's see. I always move stuff around, and then I can never find it. And we are back, and we are in the kitchen, and I have some really amazing things to talk about. So, this time of year we were talking about getting outside, and basically here in the Northeast, it's literally our last chance to get outside before we get dumped with a ton of snow or the temperatures go so cold that it's just not an option for us to go outside. So this time of year, because I like to be outside and I like to go for trails, try to travel a little, I'm going to show you my instant trail mix. Now, I have some pistachios here that have some salt on them. These are actually dry roasted salted pistachios. Now, you want to make sure that you get dry roasted because that means there's no oil, nothing like that in them. And that little toasty flavor I love. Like when you're exerting exercise, salt sometimes is better for you when you're drinking because to get your electrolytes back up, because just drinking water doesn't always hydrate you the way that you want it to. Now, my other favorite ingredient, I love cashews. I know, not everyone loves cashews. If you do not like the nuts I chose, please go pick your own, pick the different kinds of nuts. Just make sure you have a good mix in the same amount. Now, I have roughly about a half a cup of nuts here. This is going to make 2 servings. And I'm going to, these are just non-salted, non-roasted, just plain old shelled. We have the pistachios and we have the cashews. There's no things on them. Now, I have my lovely pumpkin seeds. These are wonderful. These 2 are not salted and they're not roasted. They're just cute little pumpkin seeds, the nice little green things, which these look a little different than with the ones you cut out of your pumpkin. And pumpkin seeds are great for you. They have great potassium, which is good for your muscles. They have iron, zinc, magnesium, which we need because magnesium is for about 600 reactions, I believe, in our body, chemical reactions. So it's not something that we make a whole lot on our own. And we need to make sure we're eating more of that. So we're going to add these in. If you don't like these, use sunflower seeds. I'm totally okay with that. I will not judge. Now, we have the cashews have the manganese, which is different than magnesium, which has protein and healthy fats, the cashews, and it's good for your blood pressure and stroke risks. And we want to make sure that we're all healthy and from the inside out, right? These are my favorite things in the world. These are the Hue Kitchen snacking gems. Now, if you like them a little salty instead of sweet, I just get the plain ones because I like baking with them too. But you can get the salty versions as well. So I'm going to add these in. And as far as dried fruit, this dried fruit here has nothing else. It was only plumped up and sweetened with apple juice. There's no added oils. There's no added sugar, which with dried fruit is something you want to avoid. We don't want to add so much dried sugar, like the sugar that comes into them, because dried fruit's already really naturally sugary and naturally sweet, and any added sugars isn't good for us. So we want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves high energy to go walk around. So I have these dried cranberries. You can use raisins, you can use dried cherries, whatever your favorite is. Now, I just mix this together and I keep it in my airtight container here. See? I bring this with me when I travel, when I'm outside for long periods of time and I'm walking or hiking or whatever, or when, like, say you're looking for a better, healthier snack that you don't find, because the trail mixes you see in stores, believe it or not, or like, you know, when you're in the airport, have all kinds of salt and added sugars and chemicals, and we don't want that. So this is something really simple, a lot of pantry items. You can change them up as you wish, and nice little handful to keep you going. Even if you have a 2 p.m. lag, this is a great thing to do. Thank you for joining me this week. I appreciate our guest, Claire, for coming on and sharing about CISA and all their changes. And I am so excited to do their event in November. So if you're in the area, please come down, come join us, have a good time. And I promise we will entertain your kids for at least a half hour to 40 minutes while you shop. So doesn't that sound like a good Saturday morning? So I will see you all next week with another friend of our show. I'm so happy you guys joined me.